the up-and-coming landscapers now, they are looking to add more profitable services pretty much right off the bat. That's hardscaping, installs, fertilizer, pesticides, which requires a license, and even snow removal has started to come into a realm where, again, just those prices haven't moved in a long time, and a lot of our members are complaining that it's not really worth doing that anymore. So you kind of have to get into that higher margin work sooner, to be able to sustain yourself now.
My name is John Giacotto, and I'm your host. We've got Liam Ohlmann, who is the Executive Director at the Connecticut Groundskeepers Association here today. So Liam, thank you so much for joining us on the Landscaper's Edge podcast.
No, John, thank you so much for this opportunity to, come up here. I have so many passionate topics and thoughts on this industry that I really want to share with you and your listeners, here today. And the first thing that I want to kind of get out of the way is that anything that I say here today is these are my personal thoughts, and they may not reflect the board of directors for the Connecticut Groundskeepers Association. But I'm here again. I'm here as Liam Ohlmann, and I'm so excited to kind of share my thoughts on this industry, having worn several different hats throughout the last couple years, and again, just an honor to be here. So thank you.
Oh, thank you, Liam. So just to start off with, give me a little bit of background on yourself. And I know you started as a minor league baseball pitcher for the Milwaukee Brewers. Tell me about that and kind of how you evolved into.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I'm gonna go back a little bit further. I was fortunate enough to go to Choate Rosemary Hall for high school. I had a head injury my senior year for baseball, so I took a little bit of a unorthodox path after that. I actually went to a junior college for 2 years. I got drafted out of that junior college. Was drafted by Milwaukee in the 20th round in 2008. I got to play baseball professionally for 5 years. 2 of them were with Milwaukee, and then 3 of them were in something that's called an independent league, which is out in the Midwest. And I was very fortunate, to be able to do that. In my life and in my travels, I've gotten to visit 44 out of 50 states. I just have a few of them left. And, one thing that really struck me is that when you travel to other parts of this country, people really put different emphasis on their facilities, and they back it up with their budgets. So it's really not uncommon if you go into areas of Tennessee, you go into areas of the Southeast, where a community is going to drop $500,000, $1 million, $1.5 million, $2 million on their high school sports fields, and they really do it quite frequently without thinking too much about it, because their community is so proud of that product that they're putting forward. And when you go into Connecticut, a lot of times when you're visiting sports fields, they're hammered. They're run down. The surfaces aren't that great. Yes, the grass gets cut. Yes, the infield gets dragged, but all those little details that are points of focus in other parts of this country are really not present, here in Connecticut. And I got to play on some really amazing sports fields and sports surfaces, all throughout the country in my travels. And again, they were very absent here. They just don't exist. So after I retired from baseball, I went back to school. I went to Albertus Magnus College. I have my undergrad in accounting, and after I graduated, I went back. It took me 2 years to finish up after I retired. I was going to school, going to college during the day, and then at night from 3 o'clock on, I was working as a baseball coach. I coached 4 teams at the same time for a travel program, and then I had lessons on top of that. After I graduated, I had a question as to, all right, well, I graduated. What do I really want to do? How do I really want to spend my time? And I really had this passion for giving the kids here much better playing surface to play on. Just a better facility that they were proud of, and a safer field to play on. So I had an opportunity. I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do. I got to be a head groundskeeper for a facility that had 3 baseball fields, 1 softball field, and a field hockey field. And then I did did some good work for them. And then that kind of segued into me starting my own business. I had one account that was on private property where it was, just a complex in Fairfield County. That segued into some municipal work for repairs and renovations. And in 2019, I had an opportunity to really grow and expand that. And it didn't work out. I couldn't find the help that I needed to take that business and then grow with it. And then there were some other economic factors that were going on for kind of the market in general, where as time was going on, entities were charging less money to come in and perform some of those services instead of charging more money to come in and do it. So at the end of 2019, I had a lot of soul searching to do about really what I wanted to do and how I wanted to move forward. In the fall, the Connecticut Groundskeepers Association reached out to me, and I was on track to be on their board of directors. Their executive director, he relocated from Connecticut, went down to the Carolinas, so there was a void and a vacancy. They needed to fill it. I was at a position and a point where, all right, I'm not really sure what I want to do for next year. So they were kind of left in a bind saying, all right, well, who would like to be executive director? And for me, it kind of fit with my schedule and my education and my background. It's like, all right, well, I'm taking I have my undergrad in accounting. I have a lot of passion for this industry. I have a supervisory license for ornamental and turf. So I check off a lot of boxes to be able to come into that position and do a good job. So I offered up. I said, you know what, I would love to serve as executive director for this association. Board of directors voted me in. They gave me a chance to take over. So I started with the Groundskeepers Association in February of 2020. So we were very fortunate. I had a really challenging start to that endeavor. The first thing was that we had our signature event every year is our Turf and Landscape Conference, which is coming up at the Aqua Turf on February 20th for this year. But when I started in 2020, the venue that we had booked for that event about a month before we were supposed to go, it ended up closing up. They went out of business. So we had to search for another venue. We were fortunate enough that the Aqua Turf is awesome, and they did a fantastic job of accommodating us at the last minute. So we were able to move our conference over to the Aqua Turf. The program went off, I believe that year it was about February 21st. And then we had a great conference. COVID was just kind of starting to come around. People were talking about it. People were a little bit concerned about it. And then I believe a week or two later, the state shut down.
Right.
So I was very fortunate that we were able to get that program in and have that program in person in 2020. But it was a very, very challenging first month of doing that, where you're taking over, you're moving the venue, and then COVID happens. So that was what it started with. When I started with this association, we had about 162 members. Today we have 335. And I'm very proud of the fact that our members, we put programs together that are creating value, for our members on a regular basis all throughout the year.
Right. The events get a lot of turnout.
Correct. Yep.
I've seen. Yeah. So you kind of have seen landscaping and groundskeeping from both kind of the high level macro running the organization as well as, having your own business.
Correct.
What do you think the biggest challenge is facing the small business owner who's got a landscaping company in Connecticut and even in the wider, the U.S. area?
Well, I think the biggest issue that is facing landscapers today is that the economics of the industry and the economics of living in this country have changed so much from 20 or 30 years ago. So when you're trying to compare experiences to some of the old timers or people that have been in this business for a few decades, let's take a 1995. We're just going to throw a random year out there, for example. If you're running a landscaping business at that time, you're probably charging $50 to come and mow someone's lawn. And in 2023, that same lawn is still probably getting mowed for $50. Well, you could buy a house in 1995 for $170,000. If you're buying a house today, you need over $400,000 to be able to do that. So the start of the business model from 30 years ago was you have a passion for, let's say you're starting a landscape business, you have a passion for mowing lawns. You like the smell of cut grass. You might like the sound that your truck makes. You like driving around. Some of our guys even started with a push mower in the back of a car. They didn't even have a truck when they got started. So you're going to go out, you buy a truck, you buy a mower, you start mowing lawns. You're making some profits from that. Now you get a trailer that enables you to get another mower. You're able to hire an employee. You might fill that trailer with 2 mowers and you get another truck, you get another trailer, you get a couple more mowers, you get a couple more employees that are available. And you can kind of build a business in 1995 being able to do that. Well, today, that business model doesn't work anymore. Our members and people that are starting out now, they start mowing lawns. The price of the mower has tripled since then. Get a good work truck, you're looking at $80,000. So,
but the amount they can charge has not
changed. So what ends up happening is that the business model now for our members is that they start by mowing lawns and they pretty much immediately say, okay, this is not working and this is not giving me the kind of proceeds that I'm looking for, in my life and to be able to sustain a family. So the up and coming landscapers now, they are looking to add more profitable services pretty much right off the bat. That's hardscaping, installs, fertilizer, pesticides, which requires a license, and even snow removal has started to come into a realm where, again, those prices haven't moved in a long time, and a lot of our members are complaining that it's not really worth doing that anymore. So you kind of have to get into that higher margin work sooner, to be able to sustain yourself now. So for me, I think that's really the biggest difference is that you just, very few members that are out there just being grass cutters. They need to be able to sell some of that higher margin, that higher margin work.
What do you think has caused the amount that somebody can command for some of the lower end services to not go up with inflation? Is just there's so much competition and it keeps prices suppressed, or what do you think causes that?
It's a very low barrier. It is a very low barrier of entry for the lawn mowing side of things, and that hasn't changed as time has gone on. You can go out, you can buy a used lawn mower with the capabilities that you already have. You might just have a car. In that case, you're going to put a push mower in it. If you have a truck, you might be able to get a less expensive used trailer. You put a mower on it, and you start going out and rendering services. It's an industry that where there's no license requirement. You don't need a license to go out and mow lawns. The moment that you start performing improvements on someone's property, you're throwing mulch, you're putting plants in the ground, you're doing a hardscape installation, You need something called a home improvement contractor's registration, which just verifies that you don't have a felony record. And I believe it's $250 a year to be able to maintain that registration, but by no means is that a license. In order to have a license, you have to have a test to be able to do that. So it's that whole lawn mowing side of things is really an unlicensed endeavor. And again, there's just a very low barrier of entry for it. So if someone's hungry and starting out, there's nothing stopping them from saying, all right, well, if somebody charges $75 to mow that lawn, I'll come and do it for 50. Just because at that time when they're starting out, they don't understand the true cost of their overhead. And they're willing to go in there and just kind of get in on that service.
Right. And do you find that those who are on the mowing side who have enough density, do you find that they're able to make it work from a economics perspective, or even with a lot of density, do you still have to just go up market to more landscaping and hardscaping type services?
No, I don't think that you can pay the bills now on just mowing alone. You have to at least add, if that's the business model that you're going to go down, you have to add residential and definitely commercial snow on top of that, and you're definitely going to have to do mulch and installs just to make it work. I don't see a way in which you can take conventional equipment and go out and mow lawns and scale that and be able to be profitable enough to support a family in not just Connecticut, but in America right now, and be able to kind of make that happen. So again, it's just the sooner that some of those contractors move into the higher margin work, it works out much better for them.
And you would advise that they start off immediately with the higher end work. Don't.
Well, I would advise that they start off with education. Okay. Learn. Don't just take jobs because they're out there, but learn how to do them properly. If you want to go out and start doing fertilizer, you want to start doing pesticides, don't just go to a local home improvement store and start buying product and throw it out there. Educate yourself on what is required from you. Go out and obtain your license. Take the course from UConn. Go through the process with that. Learn as much as you can. If you want to go into hardscaping, learn what the requirements are. At what point in time do you need engineering when you're going and putting in a wall? Learn about drainage. Learn about the different products and installation methods that will last you. Not just you want to be able to have if you're going to go and do a hardscape job, you want that to last for decades. You don't necessarily just want to come in there and have everything that you put in collapse in a year or two. So you have to be educated enough to know what you're doing before you start to go in and embarking on those endeavors. So I think that the education is the key before you start to kind of go down that path. And then it comes back to, all right, well, then you have to understand what your numbers are, and you have to understand what your margins are when you start getting into really any of this work. And that way it comes back to having a full and complete business plan, rather than just taking things and throwing them against the wall and kind of seeing what sticks. But again, just that education, and then coming back and understanding what your numbers are, understanding where you want to try to be for what you're charging. And then again, just coming back and doing a quality job, I think is really the key to doing that.
Gotcha. And so as far as getting education, there's kind of a wide range of ways to get education. What are kind of the top ways that you would recommend? So somebody says, I want to get into this industry. I want to either have my own business, or I want to kind of get into the industry somehow. What are the best kind of paths towards education that you would recommend?
Well, the first one is the question whether it's a worthwhile endeavor to learn before you earn. If you were to go and work for another business, you might, number one, you might be able to get a higher quality of life. You might be able to get some benefits working for one of the larger landscaping entities that are in the area. And you kind of have to go through that process of like, okay, well, what's my base level of understanding right now do I need to go work for somebody else for a few years? And maybe that would give me a little bit better balance in my life and a little bit more comfortable life than going out and trying to embark on these ventures that you may not be comfortable with, kind of right off the bat. So if you kind of go, you learn before you earn a little bit, go work for somebody else, learn what the processes are, and you might have a different take on how you would run your own business or how you would manage people, more than anything else. One thing that's I'm really proud of for the Connecticut Groundskeepers Association is that we have put together so many different training events and so many different opportunities to get education. And the second part is to build your network. So you can have classes. A lot of the suppliers have classes. A lot of the sales reps for products will come out to your job site, or they will help educate you and teach you, what you need to do for that product installation or for that practice. I mean, even if you're going and doing a planting installation, the nursery where you are buying that plant material from, 9 times out of 10, they will take the time. If you were to ask them, they're going to educate you on how to install that product correctly. And they're going to take the time. They may not have the ability to show you how to do it, but they will certainly walk you through the steps that are needed. So that way you can warranty your installation and that plant's going to be thriving, for years to come. Another great way, that I kind of touched on this a little bit, but your network, if you build your network of peers that have been in this business for a long time, and you focus on, okay, well, in my network, find people that are in the industry that you want to try to model your business after and you want to try to model yourself after, and learn from them, ask them the tough questions, and absorb everything like a sponge. And above anything else, that's what I'm most proud of, is the change that we've had for CGKA and for the Groundskeepers Association, is that there are so many opportunities for someone that's just starting out to go get some face time with someone that's been in this industry for a few decades, make that connection, get their cell phone numbers, and that way if you have questions about, hey, I don't know whether I should do this or I should do that, you have an advisor and you have somebody that you have a relationship with that you can come back to and really ask them those tough questions about directionally where do you want to take your life and where do you want to take your business, and really use the elders that have come before you, use them as an advisor, and use them as someone that you can get that information from, that's going to really come from the heart.
Right. And just out of curiosity, why do you think so many landscapers don't take advantage of networking opportunities or opportunities to kind of continue their education?
I think a part of it is pride. I think we all believe that we are doing things better than our peers, and we're doing things better than those around us. And then a second thing I think is fear of competition. In this industry specifically, there are a lot of individuals out there that kind of keep their head in the sand and really don't want to communicate as much or work together with other companies that are in their area than they probably should. And I think it's the wrong approach to go about your not necessarily your competitors, but I would call them your peers. You go about your peers and not have those open conversations about business together. I think it's a mistake. It's certainly effective where you have some peer groups of people that are in different geographies. If you're far enough apart that there's no chance that you're going to be competing on jobs, then you get this opportunity to really openly share information with one another, about things that have worked for you or things that have worked for your business or things that haven't. So I think that, again, It's just that you have to get over that ego and that point of pride, and just be a little bit more open about your business practices, and taking the time to, number one, learn from others. Number two, be willing to work together. I think that's kind of a key for really establishing yourself in your area.
Right. Yeah, people are a lot of times very fearful of competition and competitors, and the reality is that, usually, at least in my own business, when I've had conversations with competitors, a lot of times you just learn a lot more, and there's really less risk than I think people perceive, just by talking to their competitors and kind of developing those kind of collaborative relationships.
Sure, and then again with the landscaping side of things, it does come back to that the mowing is almost a lost proposition. Um, when you start getting into the higher margin work, I feel like people network a lot better. But if all that you're doing is just kind of cutting lawns, or you have your business is focused on mowing, you may not be as apt to want to network, which I think is wrong, because again, if you're in that position where you're mainly focused on mowing and you're not doing the higher end work, well, you know what? Maybe you need to listen to some other people who are.
So shifting back to kind of some of the challenges facing the landscaping industry, as far as labor, have you seen any creative ways, or how are you seeing members kind of hiring and going about trying to ensure that they have the staff they need to fulfill the jobs that they actually sell?
I really feel like it's been a huge issue for really the last 3 to 4 years. I personally don't hear as many complaints about labor today than I did a year ago, and I hear probably less a year ago than I heard 2 years ago. It's definitely something that's still present. Um,
Do you think it's because we're getting farther away from COVID, and during COVID, everyone was really focused on their house and their home and improving things, or do you think it just has something to do with something
well,
else?
from an employment standpoint, there was a lot of federal stimulus money that was coming out for a couple years, which I think buoyed people where they didn't necessarily uh, want to go out and perform physical labor in cold and hot and dusty, conditions. Whereas now I feel like now that federal money has really dried up and kind of gone away a little bit, you're going to get a few more people that may be interested in taking those roles. And I also feel like you're if you think about what some of the large digital distributors are for products that many people shop on, some people that have been in that landscape labor pool, they may be out delivering products because again they're offering a more substantial amount of money, to be able to do that versus what the economics come back and determine for landscaping.
Gotcha. Okay. Um, are you are you seeing any trends in the landscaping industry over these past few years? Or I know we talked about the trend of have everyone having to go up market to be able to afford, to to make enough revenue to sustain a business.
Yeah,
But
I mean the trend is just, again, you go the trend is for companies to go away from mowing
yeah,
and embark on other ventures, a lot sooner than that used to be. So again, if you're coming back to that business model from 30 years ago, you'd buy a truck, you buy a trailer, you buy a mower, you buy another mower, you buy another truck, you buy another trailer, you buy two more mowers, and you grow it that way. The business model now is more, all right, you buy a truck, you buy a trailer, you get a mower, you realize you're not making the kind of money that you want to make. Your next purchase, more likely than not, is you're going to go out and buy a mini excavator so that you can knock out some larger projects around the properties that you're servicing. So I think that trend still resonates and holds true. there's a big shift in equipment that's going to be used for lawn mowing coming up as a society. There's more of a push towards electric powered equipment and moving away from gas powered equipment. So I think that landscapers today would be prudent to have a conversation with their customers about the word sustainability. And I think that for the contractor side of things, if you kind of get in front of that and you start having conversations with your customers about sustainability, you start talking about how much more the upfront cost is for going electric on a lot of those things, you may be able to take your business and take yourself and, again, become a relationship based salesperson and be able to charge some higher margins on your mowing. Again, coming back to the homeowners and saying, all right, well, I'm going to show up to your house. I'm going to show up to your property with, I have this an electric mower. This is what it costs me to be able to come here and take care of your property. And I think that you're going to start to see more and more homeowners that are going to be willing to pay that to offset that higher upfront cost with purchasing that electric equipment. But I think that that's something that more and more landscapers are going to start to see pressure on.
Have you seen landscapers, at least in Connecticut, at least your members, starting to use the sustainability angle as a selling point, as a unique selling point?
Very much so.
Yeah.
Less on the electric equipment side, but more in the fertilization. More of the fertilizer practices on property, and then second of all is the installations of plants that are going into onto properties where there's more property owners are more open to using local native plants on their property versus something that may not be native to the area. And then another thing is about you creating homeowners are enjoying some balance on their property, whereas 10, 20 years ago they would want the entire property to just be kept grass, whereas now, especially down my way in Fairfield County, you're starting to see homeowners asking for a pollinator pathway. They're asking for a meadow on their property, and they may not want that. They may not want in their entire property, consisting of just lawns.
Gotcha. Makes sense. So as far as, do you have any advice for the landscaping business owner who's got maybe a small operation and is looking to kind of take his business to the next level? He's already kind of maybe gone a little up market. He's not doing the mowing, but he's trying to grow. And do you have any advice for that sort of business owner?
Sure. I think that for that business owner, the best thing to do would be to really understand where your numbers are in your business, understand what your costs are. How much is it costing you per 1,000 square feet to perform services? How much is it costing you per 100 feet of edging? How long is that taking? What's your overhead? How does your cash flow look? Really understanding those aspects of the financials of your business before really making any decisions about what direction you're going to move forward.
Do you find it's typical for people to for landscaping business owners to really delve into their numbers like that? Or do you find more flying by the seat of their
Typically,
pants?
it's such a difficult trade and such a difficult job to run a business in that many of the landscapers they are working day to day to make sure that people are happy, make sure that things are running the way that they should be. So they're spending all their time and their energy working in their business rather than on their business. So I would just implore them to, again, just take as much time as possible and really do an analysis of the financials of their business and their operation. I mean, to retire today, you need to be able to come up with $1 million, $1.5 million by age 65, something like that, to really be able to retire and be comfortable with that. I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to be in stocks. It can be in real estate, but you have to have something tangible that you can come up with that $1.5 million at age 65. And You take a look at your financials and take a look at your business and really ask yourself, okay, well, am I going to get there? Number one. And if I'm not going to be getting there, number two, what do I need to do to get there?
Right. Right. Um, do you have any advice for somebody who's trying to shift from working in the business to working on the business? I mean, that's a very big, it's easier said than done, right?
Yeah, for sure. The most difficult step that I see a lot of landscapers struggling with is when they completely take themselves out of the field and they make that decision. They might have somewhere between 8 and 12 employees, but they're still out working. And to really make that decision, say, okay, well, I'm not going to go out and render any services anymore that I can bill for, but I'm just going to work on managing my business and I'm going to work on sales. And it's a huge, it's a, it's something that a lot of the landscapers have a very difficult time trying to wrap their head around. And it's almost the sooner they do it, the better off that they're going to be, because it's just you're in this position and now you gotta hit the ground running and really uh, manage your business in a different way than you would if you were out in the field working and performing billable services.
Right. It's a huge mindset shift.
Yeah, for sure.
And I'd argue most people don't ever make that leap, right? And that's what usually suppresses people from kind of going to the next level. Do you have anything else you'd want to share with our listeners?
I'm just again, I want to say thank you so much for the opportunity for me to be on this podcast today, and I'm so grateful to be able to share some thoughts with you. If you have any questions about our association, it can be found at cgka.org. It's Charlie Golf Kilo Alpha .org, and we're happy to answer any questions that you might have. And again, just thank you so much for inviting me up here and for taking the time with me today. So thank you.
Yeah, Liam, I can't thank you enough for being on my podcast. I really appreciate it. And it was awesome to hear your story and all the advice that you had to share with our listeners.